Shelley Francis, founder of Creative Courage Press, and this is a conversation about creating more courage for the complexity of being human. Thanks for being here. And today I'm talking with my friend DD Haeg, author of a new book called Blossom in the Beauty of Being, the Pictorial and Poetic Sacred Plant Medicine Journey. Welcome, DD.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, friend. It's so great to be here with you.
I'm so excited to talk about this book because I know it's been a long journey of at least 5 years or so since we started talking about what your creative project was going to be. And you launched this beautiful hardcover book this summer, and it was supported through a Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to people so that they can get to know who the author and photographer is behind this beautiful book.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Oh, so I'm going to start reading Dee Dee's official author bio first, which I just love because it's such a soulful description of you and your relationship to the flowers.
Yeah.
Okay. Dee Dee Haeg delights in playing with flowers and exploring expanded states of consciousness, the ones beyond checking off the to-do list, looping thoughts, or feeling overwhelmed. She loves to dwell in her body and the subtle realms, which feel alive and pulsating with possibilities. Dee Dee adores sacred rituals and ceremonies and is interested in a spirituality that encourages people to allow the fullness of life to flow and unfold.
Yes. Yes.
And let me go one more paragraph in here.
Yeah, please.
So this is from the back of the book. One day in 2021, in a little yellow casita deep in the heart of the Serra Madres of Oaxaca, Mexico, Dee Dee lost her mind and her drive to do, but reconnected to her heart and true essence. After this Remembrance Day, she began to relate to life in a new way and bravely followed her impulse to create this book. Today, she adores finding the sacred in the ordinary and helping clients blossom in their lives. Dee Dee offers one-on-one sessions, flower ceremonies, retreats, and art, and you can find out more at her website at rosetempleliving.com.
Yeah.
So, I know that's a lot to introduce you with, but it's just like such a great overview of your work.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a journey.
Well, it is, and we've known each other for since way back in 2007 when we first started working at Sounds True, and we have been supporting each other's creative journeys all these years.
Totally. Books have been central to our friendship. I mean, there's so much more than that, but
Books and photography, because I remember you have always included flowers, whether they're on your desk in a vase or photos that you've been taking or photos at your gong ceremonies when you were doing those with your yoga.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this gorgeous book to orient our listeners to what it's all about.
Okay, great. When I was at a funeral this past weekend, and one of my cousins asked me, well, what is this book about? And I was like, I think the best way that I could describe it is like, if a meditation teacher and a bouquet of flowers had a book baby, Blossom would be their child. So the book has evolved kind of more than just a meditation teacher. I see it more as like a guide. But it's also just, art in its purest form, macro photography. There's over 150 different images in the book. So I think there's actually a little poem that I'd like to read, if I can, from the book, that really kind of describes, I think, what has come through this book. So
That'd be great.
Shall I read that? Yeah. Okay, so it's called Because of a Flower. Because of a flower, she pulled me in close with her sweet floral fragrance. I slowed down and leaned in, as if sipping an intoxicating glass of limoncello. Because of a flower, I savored the moment. Her tiny little green thorns reminded my fingertips of sacred boundaries. Her luscious, soft pink petals brushed my cheeks and tickled my nose, carrying me out of my head and deeper into my arms and legs and womb. Because of a flower, I took a seat in the sacred temple of my body. My soma shivered with the aliveness of Shakti coursing directly through my veins, like a sweet river of nectar. Her beauty and and nourishment blessed me. Because of a flower, I dwelled in the presence of a goddess. I pulled away to absorb her full essence. Her dark green leaves reached out as if to say, stay here, close, just a little while longer. My heart softened and mirrored her beauty. Because of a flower, I remembered love. Yeah.
I love that so much. And I love that your book is poetry and writing and practices, and then just these amazing photos. Well, I can do it too, but lift it up and show people what's in it. What are some of your favorite pages?
Oh my goodness. It was funny because I was showing this book to a friend the other day and I was like, oh, this is my favorite. And then I turned the page and I would say, oh, this is my favorite. Oh, this is my favorite. But I honestly love them all. This is a really gorgeous one here. I
Is
love the layers and the complexity and the whimsical playfulness of this one. Um, there's so many different ones. This one's called Fire and Ice.
mm,
And the really fun thing, Shelley, is like these flowers are from all over. Like I just, because every one of them is taken on my iPhone. My iPhone's with me everywhere. So I would literally go to the grocery store and see some really pretty flowers that would just pop out as if they were like speaking to me and say, come here, come here. And so this was one that was taken in King Supers.
oh, I love that.
And then other ones are like taken, let's see if I can find this particular one of my favorites. It's called well, actually, this is it right here. This is the one I have on my desk.
Right.
This one is taken from my neighbor's yard. The light's kind of reflecting there.
There you go.
But it's called Cosmic Dust, and it's that reminder that we kind of come from stars. But this was taken from my neighbor's yard across the way, with permission, of course. But all of them just sort of dropped in different ways. Some of them I went to an actual flower store and bought and purchased, and others were maybe at a friend's house or something like that. So I love to walk, and so whenever a flower calls, I just respond.
Well, and how long do your flowers go back there's like, you said 150 in your book. How many years does that represent of your photography?
Oh my goodness. Well, most of them are pretty recent. But like I've been taking pictures since I was in 8th grade. I always loved capturing moments. And, part of me is I love to write as well. And so photography, when you break down that word, it's actually called light writing. And so I've always been mesmerized, I think, by different shades of light. As a young child, I was really into Monet and Renoir and their use of light. And so when I had the camera, I was always like curious about where's the light coming from and how is it hitting the subject. And so like I've been taking pictures since 8th grade. And then one of the things that I also did was in college, I took an actual photography class. And back in that day, that was when we did like dodging and burning in the Lightroom, where you can expose an area of a photograph. And so I've always just loved photography.
And
Yeah.
tell us about your earliest memory of connecting with the flowers, because I know that goes way, way back too.
It does. Yeah, it does. I think when I was 4 or 5, at least, I remember my first flower picking. There was a forest behind our home in Idaho, and there would be all of these wildflowers just profuse everywhere. Shooting stars, lilies, bluebells, lady slippers. The lady slippers were like the rare find. They were harder to find, but they're so delicate and beautiful. So I remember picking flowers when I was, like 5, and I have these pictures of my siblings and I with hands full of wildflowers. It's always been there. The flowers have always been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your bio gives us a hint at the origin story of this book in particular, and you called it your Remembrance Day,
Yeah.
the day you reconnected to your heart and true essence. Could you share more about your experience of that and how that became courage to create this book?
Yeah. Well, I've always been kind of a curious person and for a bit I was a life coach. And so I've always been searching. And it's a beautiful thing to grow and evolve, but it can also become a sort of an addiction. And I'm not necessarily saying that that was an addiction for me, but I love to live in my head and figure things out and, you know, always pursue more education and things like that. And um when I was in Oaxaca, I was working with a shaman down there, and he helped me sort of, and I don't really know how all this happened, when you're in nature like that and with someone who understands energy and the flowers were around us. I just came into this state of true being where my mind wasn't trying to control or figure things out or what was going on. And so it just felt like this really calm place of being. And I really feel like perhaps that was my first taste of true being. I think there's moments of it that we have in and out of our lives, but that I really got to live in this space of freedom and peace. And so, and then that's what I think is really our true essence. Um, and so, um, when that happened, it was almost like this sort of operating system started to begin to new way of seeing things. And so this, I think, was really the foundation of my stepping out of that way of doing and into a way of being. And the flowers were there, and shortly thereafter I really just started playing with them more, for taking more pictures of them, and so it just sort of evolved there. But that was my Remembrance Day, because I think that's what we're all really, again, it's not that there's any one state that we're all trying to achieve, but when we can let go of all of these programs and patterns, what we truly find is love itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say the message of the flowers is from, how do we use your book to access the message of the flowers?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's sort of two different questions, but
Yeah, no, I'm wanting to just sort of drop into the question even deeper, and really let the flower come through. The at the heart of it all, I believe, under all the messages that the flowers share, is love. But the messages can come in different forms. One of the parts of the book is called a Council of Elders. And so, like, I'll just show one, for example, here. This is called Into the Temple. And when I sat with this flower, I heard temple, and I heard messages of like honoring the sacred within, and really just treating our own bodies as a sacred temple. And the beautiful thing that I think about the flowers is they've given me all of this incredible support and guidance, but that can show up in different ways for everyone else. So somebody might actually take that picture and get a different message than I did. And that's what I think is unique and beautiful, is that the flowers will come through in their own way through each of us. And so it's really just a matter of, sitting with them and being present with them to hear what they might have to say.
Yeah. Ever
So,
since knowing you are working on this book, I feel like I've been noticing flowers in a more visceral way, or when I walk by them, or I'll send you a picture of one of the flowers from the garden some morning, like there's just a different way of paying attention to the
yeah.
beauty that comes through flowers, or the way that the light interacts, or how they
Ab-
smell.
Absolutely. That's part of the reason that I named the book Blossom the Beauty of Being. Their beauty is what I believe helps drop us into the beingness, into our beingness, into the present moment. So you can be walking down a street and then all of a sudden you'll notice a beautiful flower. And that is their magic. That's their medicine, I believe, is that they can help us just take that pause for a moment.
Mm.
And if nothing else, just take a deep breath of inspiration. And at its simplest form, I think that that's what flowers do. And that's why we love sending flowers to people. And, flowers are a means of communication. They have been for many years. When I was doing some research on the book, I came across something called the flower, is it the Flower Encyclopedia or the Flower Bible or something? And it was basically in Victorian times, flowers were a way of communicating messages to people without saying anything. And so there's this whole elaborate like dictionary of what flowers mean and that kind of thing. So I think that flowers have always been speaking to us. It's just a matter of how much we're tuning in or aware that they are.
Right. And so
Yeah.
from that standpoint, it feels like your book is also part of a larger conversation, or even a movement about not just flowers and the value of art, but of you call it sacred plant medicine. So can you talk more about what's the bigger conversation you think Blossom is part of?
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things in modern day times is that we're really disconnected from Mother Nature. And these flowers offer plant medicine. There's so many different types of plant medicine now, and there's a lot in mainstream media now happening. There's organizations like Moms on Mushrooms that are working with psilocybin and some other, plant medicines that are helping people work through some of their own healing. And so I think that flowers are a part of that plant medicine umbrella because they're here to really help us connect back with our own divinity and that love, source of love itself, which I think is, again, that disconnection from Mother Nature, from, one can say, the goddess of love, from our own divinity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and the book is also a poetic journey that
Yeah.
includes like the poems, like the one that you read. And how did poetry, do you think, become important to your journey? And did it take any kind of courage to include your poetry?
Yes, thank you. It really did. There were so many times when I said to myself, who do I think I am to be putting this poem out here like this? Like, this is not, I had to let go of a lot to really be able to allow it to be out in the world. It's a very vulnerable act to share your art. And not everybody does, and that's okay. Not everybody shares their artwork, whether it's poetry or paintings or photography. It's a very courageous act to share your art. And I love that the courage is so important to your work, Shelley, because you know, the heart of the word, or the word courage is from the Latin or French root cœur, which is heart. And so it really does feel like you're sharing your heart with the world when you share your artwork. And so, yeah, I don't, you know, I have lots of different people that I love who are poets. I love Rupi Kaur. I love, Megan Falley is a local one. Her partner, is the Colorado Nobel Poet Laureate, Andrea Gibson. I love, oh gosh, oh man, his name's gonna escape me. It'll come. So anyway, when I look at those poets and I think of their beautiful work, I almost didn't want to include my poetry. It's really hard not to compare yourself, but the poetry really felt it was important as part of the book because it would just drop in when I would be working on it. And so it felt like it did need to be included. Oh, one of the really fun things that I would love to share is that there's 3 sections in the book. There's so many different ways that you can interact with the book. This is why I love it so much. It's, you know, you can just have it on your coffee table and look at the pretty flowers, or you can read the poetry, or you can do an embodiment practice. But one of the things that came through was the 3 different sections. There's a section called Bold and Beautiful, and then a section called Soft and Subtle. And as the names of the flowers started dropping in, and then I put them all on one page, I realized it was like they sounded like a poem, stanzas in a poem. And so that was kind of just this fun sort of outflow, nothing that I had ever planned, but that just kind of came out of the book. And so at the beginning of each of those sections, there's little pieces of poetry.
I was looking for that. Can you find that page real quick and read a few lines? Because it's not just saying zinnia, rose, aster. You named the flower. The flowers have names like not
Yeah.
more than captions. They're like their own names.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll read from page 180 called It's on the Soft and Subtle Journey.
That's exactly the page I ended up on.
Awesome. All right. So it begins. I reveal it all. Shelley, maybe you could like show the page, like the flower page.
Oh,
Because then, this is called I Reveal It All. Yep. And then the next one is My Beloved Heart, My Perfect Imperfections, My Fleshy Flesh, Peachy and Keen, My Truth is Somewhere Here. Yeah.
yeah.
Fun?
Just so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Her body invites, I'm just skipping ahead. Her body invites softness. Her dignity permeates. Her love holds me, even in the darkest of corners. Portals open. We rest. We belong. We play. We bleed. We hold each other close. We get intimate. It's so delightful. Blossoming.
Each one of these you can just sit with and see so much detail. I mean, there's just so much good energy that comes from each of these, and they're so different that I think I told you the other day that I keep this on the shelf behind me, and sometimes I'll just like flip through the pages like it's a random book and open it up. And one, it was the zinnia, and I've been growing zinnias from seed in my garden this summer. And that morning I had been out watering all the patio plants and really noticing those little golden stars that are in the zinnias. And then it pops up in your book
In
that
the
day.
book.
And it just feels like that's a way of the flowers talking to us. It's just noticing those little details.
Yes, it's very subtle, but it's there. It's like they really just want to play with us.
Yeah.
And I love that nature about the flowers. I feel like they're really playful. Um, and really invite us into that, like, tuning in. It's like there's magic here. Hello, come play. It's magical. And when I say magical, I mean that's kind of a sort of broad term, but that's what it feels like. It's like they begin to come into our own field of awareness, right? And play with us, and we begin to notice things differently. Again, based on us, like where we're at. Like the crown one might speak to you, whereas the, you know, layers of love might be speaking to me because I'm, you know, working through different relationships or whatever. But anyway, yeah.
Well, it really is such a way of getting out of your head and into your heart. And that goes back to the heart.
Yeah.
It is listening to that. And it just makes for a richer day, I think,
Yeah.
to have that be part of your day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the things that for those who are willing to, you know, play in this deeper way with them, it also brings you, it brings you into your heart, but it brings you into your body. The flowers are very sensual. Like I often say that they evoke our senses. So when you smell a lovely rose, you take in their essence, you know, and your whole body will respond. You might feel, you know, the brush of the petal and how soft a rose petal is. And they're really here to also help us through our senses get back into our body, which is so key for when you are stuck in your head. Can you come back to your body? And that's part of the reason why there are so many embodiment practices in here as well, is to try to help us come out of here and get back into here. Because this is a source of wisdom for us as well.
Mm-hmm. So can you describe what happens? Like, I know you offer flower ceremonies. What happens during a flower ceremony and what makes it a sacred plant medicine journey?
Mm-hmm. So, you know, a journey for me is something where we have an intention that we set together. And then we have open up the field to have an experience. And then we close and we have an integration phase. This book is also mirrors a journey, meaning that you can learn how to set your own intentions, to have your own sort of a flower ceremony, and then how to integrate what you've taken from that ceremony. But in my work, as a guide, I work with flowers to, for example, a ceremony would look like someone comes to the house. We might open with some cacao, which is also a plant, and set an intention to open the space to the guidance of the flowers. And the way that we do that is really in the preparation. So we have the cacao ceremony, and then we also have a ritual where we take a rose bath, honoring the flowers and calling forward their medicine, and that way pure or cleansing ourselves, preparing for the journey. And then an actual journey is really just varies from person to person based on what their intentions are. But we will play with flowers in different ways. We might sprinkle the rose petals in the room. We might do a meditation with the flower. Sometimes we might use other plant medicines to kind of help facilitate that. But it's a way to, all plants have sacred medicine, I believe. And it's a way to call forward that medicine to help guide us forth our own wisdom. Does that make sense?
It does. And I pulled out some words from the book too, is that you say that integrating is as important as the ceremony itself. So
Yeah.
what are some ways that you take your clients through the integration phase, or the
Mhm.
take home? Is it homework, or what do you ask them?
Yeah, there's a variety of different ways, and usually when my in-person ceremonies are here, that's done the next day. Sometimes we can get a little into our heads when we process what has happened. So I try to help keep us, in our bodies through some of these practices. And sometimes I will give homework to someone, and that homework might look like going to a flower market and seeing which flower pulls you forward or toward it, and then taking that flower home to meditate with it or just sit with it. um Sometimes, depending on, there's often themes that come up when we have the actual ceremony. It might be letting go, it might be working through maybe a trauma. There's a variety of different themes, so sometimes the themes um merit different integrations. So it might be reading some poetry, it might be watching a film. um
Mhm.
but together we really just kind of weave this tapestry, continue weaving what unfolded in the field in the actual experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, what else do you want to talk about this book? What was some of the ups and downs of your process, or
Mm.
the creative courage? What kind of courage did you need for the book to come together?
Mm. You know, I alluded to this before, that it takes a lot of courage to be able to share your art. But I also think it takes a bit of a village. Like, I was so grateful to have our friendship and, you know, come to you when I'm just feeling like this is crazy and what am I doing? And to get those reminders from your friends that you can do it. I really um had a solid group of people around me that helped me to keep going when I felt like I needed to just abandon ship. So it was, it took a lot of courage. And I think um, the one thing that it taught me was to allow things to unfold in their own time. You can't really rush creativity. I don't think you can't force it. And so um, I'm sometimes an impatient person, and those are usually the times when I would hit the wall and say, I'm done, I'm not doing this. But I think it's just having patience and courage to wait for the next step to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it did take a fair amount of courage and support from others. And I want to just give a shout out to all my Kickstarter backers as well, because, there's I wouldn't call that pressure, but, knowing that all of these people said, yes, we believe in you, you can do this, also helped me stay in the fire, because sometimes you just gotta stay in the fire to get something done. And so
Yeah,
I'm really grateful for all of my Kickstarters who said yes and
absolutely.
backed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does take a village. I mean, and then when you do the work yourself, you're putting on so many different hats as the creator and the marketer and the
Mhm.
designer. And you had a great book designer to work with, but there's
Yeah.
lots of pieces that you had to learn to bring it all together.
I learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot. And, I said in my note to my Kickstarters that this was not the book that I thought I was making, but it's perfect as it is. Um, I learned so much about printing that I'll do differently next time. And, um, there was some color. Um, the book is beautiful, and there were some color challenges. There were some differences in some of the colors of the images that I was like, I literally like cried when I saw it because this is not what I knew the flowers to be and their, colors. And it was such a lesson in like letting go and letting it be. Because it was still beautiful. It's just not what I thought it was gonna be. And so there are so many lessons along the way. I felt like this book was just constantly, the flowers were constantly teaching and moving through me.
Well, you said next time. So do you want to talk a little bit about this being only the beginning of your
Yes,
Blossom series?
yes, yes, yes. So originally when I started this project, I thought I was going to do an Oracle card deck, but then in the midstream, it was like, no, this is meant to be a book. And then, I got, I don't know, maybe halfway into it. And then it started dropping in. This is actually a book series. So this is volume 1, Blossom and the Beauty of Being. And then volume 2 will be Blossom in the Velvet Darkness or something like that. And then the third will be blossoming and rebirth. And so it basically follows the cycle of a flower of blossom, die, and then rebirth and replanting and restarting again. And so already I feel like things are dropping in for me for the next book. Even though I'm still enjoying and loving and sharing this book, that's how I think creativity works, is it just flows through you when you're ready, when you're
Right,
open.
right. And I
Yeah.
do think that, this book then takes on a life of its own and it becomes part of this family of books and messages and uh,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
bouquet of it all
Yes, the bouquet of it all. Absolutely.
or the bigger garden.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, I wondered if you wanted to read your blessing poem for us and
Oh, I would. Yes, yes, yes. It's a lovely way for us to close. So, um, this was something again. The flower blessing was something that dropped in pieces. And this is actually part of how the poetry started coming through was I felt this really um aliveness in my body, and that it was like a direct, I don't know, I just felt the presence of the flowers very strongly. And so it came through in different parts, but this is the final blessing. So a flower's blessing. May love know you. May the rich, dark humus of Gaia hold deep roots for your being. May the present moment tickle your mind and tickle your mind with sweet whispers of the heart and dwell in the sacred temple of your body. May your feelings flow free of judgment and anoint the holy mystery of life around you. May your being be effortless and beautiful, like a communion of dancing flowers in a lush green meadow, free and wild in their expression and blossoming in aliveness.
beautiful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for being here today and sharing your stories and sharing the flowers and your wisdom. And congratulations on this book.
Thank
Um,
you. And thank you so much for helping me bring it to fruition. I really, truly couldn't have done it without a creative partner like you, friends
uh,
like you.
so my pleasure. So much fun. So
Yeah.
where can people find you and purchase a book or your artwork or your course on how to meditate with flowers?
Yeah. They can go to rosetempleliving.com. And there's a section for the artwork specifically, a section for the book. And then if you have any curiosities about working with me for flower ceremonies or purchasing the course, there's also a section for that. So
Okay, and we'll put that in the notes below this video. And I just want to thank everybody for listening to this video and taking the time to be here. I hope you learned something about your creative courage and flowers and how to connect with the flowers in your wisdom. And just leave with one question is what kind of flowers might inspire you? So thanks.